Hey, Merry Christmas and welcome back to my channel. This is Comics and Cosmetics, and today Jim and I are talking about the deadliest bounty hunter in all the galaxy, Boba Fett. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. As I just told you from the future by way of the TARDIS we keep stored in the back, this is Comics and Cosmetics, where I, Danny Sanssouci, a licensed cosmetologist and registered super nerd, do my makeup while you watch on and I talk to you about whatever nerdy topic I've got on my brain that day. This week, I'm introducing my new co-host, Jim.
Guten Tag.
He's our fuzzy little stuffed child.
If I'm a child,
We'll
why
get
did you
into
leave
more
me in
Jim
Florida?
later. We did not leave you in Florida on purpose.
Define purpose.
She sent you back. It was fine. You just wanted to stay longer.
Sent me in an
You know what? We're not
box.
talking about this right now, okay? Because right now we need to talk about one of my favorite subjects of all time, Boba Fett. Now, for a middle-aged human like myself, Star Wars was a huge influence on my nerdy flavor. My first crush being Han Solo. Thank you, Harrison Ford. Thank you. And it was my first obsession with any kind of character, movie, anything. And that includes the Star Wars Holiday Special. They're still love in my heart for you.
He's as good as the new Matrix movie.
Really? That's just rude. Star Wars was a really big deal for people into nerd culture like myself because it really feels like the first time that people just went fanatic over something like this. You know, the sci-fi nature and dressing up and going to the movies in costume. And it was just really a big deal all the way around. You know, Star Trek pretty much invented the convention thing, and Doctor Who, of course, Doctor Who. But man, Star Wars, people all over the world would line up for days just to get in to see it in the theater. The first movie was just an absolute smash hit, skyrocketing George Lucas into superstardom that I'm sure even he didn't expect. And while working on production for the second film, the greatest Star Wars film of all time, fight me, The Empire Strikes Back. While working on that, he had envisioned this bounty hunter character as more of a super commando dressed all in white. Where have I seen this before?
I hope he shoots better.
You're right, Jim. You're right. Just can't aim for shit. Plastic armor? He envisioned him as pretty much a stormtrooper, but of the B to the A kind, and can actually aim at things.
Yahtzee.
So funny. These super commandos that Lucas had envisioned eventually become the Mandalorians, who, in my opinion, they have one of the best, well-rounded, fully fleshed out cultures in all of fictional history, from their own complete language to style, culture, religion, you name it. You could study the Mandalorian culture for hours and hours and hours. And there are some really great YouTube videos that you can watch on it. But I do highly recommend reading some of the novelizations. They're pretty great. I went down the rabbit hole a couple of years ago on the Mandalorian culture. I can admit that I didn't know much about it at that time. And I wanted to know more. You know, when I watch shows like The Mandalorian, which... fantastic. But when I watch shows like that, I want to have as much knowledge as possible to just squeeze as much enjoyment out of it as possible. But again, the Mandalorian culture is definitely one of the most interesting and complex fictional cultures that's ever been created for television and or movies and books. It's really up there with George R.R. Martin's Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, Westeros. We're not really talking about the Mandalorians as a whole today. I'll save that for another time. I really want to get my teeth into that because Lord, it's fun. But today we are talking about the man who started it all, Boba Fett. Initially, in the original trilogy, he only appeared for a total of 6.5 minutes in the entire trilogy and only had 4 lines of dialogue. His character developed a fanatic fan base that no one had ever seen before or saw coming. Like, Lucas really felt like, yeah, people like this character. He's pretty cool. But he had no idea it was going to be as crazy as it was. He actually, and I know you're going to try and correct me, but let me finish. He actually first introduced the character in a parade in California. Yeah, a local parade. It was this town's, I can't remember. I'll try to put a caption in post. But, George Lucas lived in California, and he thought, hey, we'll drum up some fan service, some interest by taking part in this local parade. We'll have Vader in it, as well as this new character, Boba Fett. And I know what you're thinking. I've seen Darth Vader and Boba Fett parades, but these were actual set costumes. He had people marching down in the actual set costumes for Vader and Fett. Like, can you imagine? Jim? Can you? Like,
I did not exist, Smurf.
You're just sitting there watching your local homecoming parade, and here comes flipping the actual Darth Vader and Boba Fett. Like, I wouldn't even be able to move. It would, oh my gosh. So that was actually the first time the public ever saw the character of Boba Fett. Now, yes, later, 1978, the doomed Star Wars Holiday Special, we get our very first glimpse. We get our very first taste of Boba Fett, the character, in an animated cartoon, which was... Do I need to say it? Just watch it for yourself. They have it on Disney Plus now. God love them. And it's canon. The Star Wars Holiday Special is canon. Now, the great thing, the absolutely awesome thing about getting to talk to Boba Fett today is the show that's coming out on Disney Plus on December 29th. So next weekend from today, which, by the way, the day you're watching this is Christmas. So Merry Christmas. You get more me and Jim.
Giving the fans what they crave.
But the Book of Boba Fett comes out on Disney Plus December 29th. But why is it so great that you're talking about him today?
Is that supposed to be me?
It's an excellent question, Jim. It's an excellent question. What's great about getting to talk about him today is because of a little fella by the name of Dave Filoni. Dave Filoni is amazing, and he has practically saved the entire Star Wars franchise along with Jon Favreau. If you are not familiar with why it is so awesome that Dave Filoni is the showrunner for, Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, I'm about to tell you. But that's why you're here, right? Dave Filoni worked on a couple of animated series, a couple little ditties you might know about called Star Wars Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels. And what he did there has really changed the course for Star Wars. Little do many people know, George Lucas actually handpicked Dave Filoni to be the new Big Daddy of Star Wars. Dave Filoni was an animator. He didn't really know much about making actual movies and TV until he met George Lucas, and George Lucas took him under his wing, said he wanted him to work on Clone Wars, and basically taught him film while working on this show. Dave Filoni is a Star Wars superfan, first and foremost. And he used Clone Wars as a vehicle to bring in Star Wars legends. For those of you who don't know, there are 2 routes with Star Wars. You have Canon, which is accepted as, Canon.
Today.
Shut up, words are hard. You have Canon, which George Lucas and everyone agrees, yes, this actually happened. This is a thing, this happened. It is universal across all Star Wars franchise films, shows, etc. Then you have what's called Star Wars Legends. And those exist, those stories, tales, what have you, information. Those exist in the novels. There are 6 books about Boba Fett. I believe they're called The Tales of the Bounty Hunter. The Bounty Hunter Tales. That's it. Yeah. I know you've got some notes too, but they're not the nice ones, so keep it to yourself, sir. You have those books about Boba Fett and the comic books. And they're like, oh, those are nice stories. And they do possess canon. The Star Wars Legends tales, they do include canon. But for the most part, the actual Star Wars franchise overlooks them as, well, those didn't really happen. They're nice stories, but they're kind of fan fiction. But if you have watched Star Wars Clone Wars, Star Wars Rebels, and The Mandalorian, you will notice that Mr. Filoni, God love him, he's precious. Mr. Filoni has been bringing in some of the Star Wars legends and making them canon. In Star Wars Clone Wars, he brings in Admiral Thrawn, who was a huge part of the novels. Some say the best storyline of all the novels include Admiral Thrawn. And you'll notice he's brought in his character, the one he created for Clone Wars, Ahsoka Tano, into The Mandalorian. So she is now part of live action. Live action. Do you remember the Turtle Man, Jem?
Oh, hillbilly.
I can't say live action anymore without thinking about the Turtle Man. And now you can't either. But it's safe to say that now that Dave Filoni is pretty much in charge of our favorite bounty hunter, best in the galaxy, some say. Now that he is in charge of this, that he is going to start utilizing this vast reservoir of fantastic storytelling and pulling it into canon. It's just, there are some great stories in the Star Wars Legends, and the history and culture of the Mandalorians is definitely one of them, and I really insist that you check that out. But also, so is the life story of Boba Fett. His story really gets fleshed out in the Legends, and Dave Filoni knows that. He knows that, and he knows that this is what Star Wars needs. People have been reading these books and comic books. There's a whole comic book series on Boba Fett that tells you his entire life story. And he knows that people love these stories, and he would be stupid not to take advantage of that and give us some fresh, new, great live action Star Wars. But that is why it is so fun to get to talk about Boba Fett today. That because of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau bringing in more of the Star Wars Legends, we get to really explore some of the more rich, interesting storylines that the life of Boba Fett has to offer. So when we first really meet Boba Fett, he is a bounty hunter mercenary for hire in the employ of Crime Lord of Tatooine, Jabba the Hutt. We only see him briefly, but he makes such a big impact on it. It isn't until the prequels, yeah. But you could also thank Dave Filoni for Clone Wars, the animated series, and Rebels, making the prequels make some sense and become palatable. This is the part of the video where you say goodbye to my nice clean shirt and say hello to me being covered in makeup, translucent powdered, and probably my hair.
Uber messy.
Shut up, Jim. Occupational hazard. But it isn't until episode 2 in the prequels, Attack of the Clones, where we discover Boba is a clone of Jango Fett, who was commissioned by Jedi Master Sifo Dyas to be the DNA source template for a new breed of stormtroopers. The only thing that Jango requested in exchange was one unaltered clone just for himself, so he could have a son. That's sweet. Yeah, isn't it? It's sweet. When Jango was a child before he was on Camino. He was a boy living on a homestead on the planet Concord Dawn in the Mandalorian sector. The Mandalore, or that's what it's called, the leader of the Mandalorians, Jaster Muriel, had taken refuge on the homestead he lived on. If you hear some scratching and crunching, my hedgehogs are awake and they're eating. They're so cute. This was during the Mandalorian Civil War, where the true Mandalorians were fighting against Death Watch. Death Watch was a kind of group of zealots, religious Mandalorian zealots, who just felt like the true Mandalorians had become milquetoast, whiny babies, and weren't following the way, the true Mandalorian way. So Jaster had taken refuge during the Civil War at Jango Fett's childhood home. The leader of the Death Watch was a little fella named Tor Vizsla, and he finds him there. Well, amidst all the craziness and chaos of the ensuing battle, Jango's father tells him to go run and hide. His whole family is killed by Tor Vizsla and his Death Watch. It is Jaster, the Mandalore himself, that had taken refuge at his home, that finds poor little Jango in a field and takes him in and adopts him as his own, thereby making him a Mandalorian. In Mandalorian culture, this is called foundling. The Mandalorians are sort of like ancient Romans in this respect, where Mandalorians aren't necessarily a species, it's more of a culture. At one point, they were a specific species, but we will save that for another time because that is a very long story. But now they're more of a culture. Much later, after a fatal betrayal by Jaster's second in command, Montross, Jaster dies in Jango's arms. Once Jango exposed the betrayal to the Mandalorian people, Montross was exiled and Jango was made Mandalore. That's right. Boba Fett's daddy was the leader of the Mandalorians.
Those are legends.
I know it's legend right now, but don't worry, Dave Filoni is going to bring it into canon. Even more time goes by, and Tor Vizsla and the governor of the planet Galadran concoct a plan to finally eliminate the true Mandalorians once and for all. Where am I going with all of this stuff about Jango? It's gonna make sense, I promise. Just calm down, we'll get there.
I have things to do today.
Look, Jim, I've had enough out of you for one day. I'm gonna need you to take it down to about a 3. You're at a 7. I need to bring it down to a 3. Tor Vizsla and the governor of Galadran convince the Jedi High Council that the true Mandalorians are out there just whacking people. They're killing protesters, they're killing political activists, women and children, insanity everywhere. They're just killing everybody. And they ask them to intervene. Like, help us, help us, help us. These guys are so bad. They're so bad and we're so scared. We just need you. You're smarter than us and we trust you to fix this situation. So please, can you come? Thank you. The Jedi agree, and it results in all the true Mandalorians being wiped out except for Jango Fett, who in his absolute desperation, rage, depression, you name it, kills 6 Jedi Masters with his bare hands.
Ooh, death machina.
No, it's so cool. No wonder they wanted him to be their template. Eventually he was subdued by the Jedi, and they had no choice but to allow him, they handed him over to the governor. They're like, here, we got him. All the Mandalorians are done. You won't have these problems anymore. Here's Jango Fett. The governor's like, thanks. And he sells him into slavery. I mean, honestly, had that been me and I was so worried about taking over and stuff, I probably would have just killed the dude. I really would. I mean, if you're going to be an evil bad guy and, you know, you want all the power and glory for yourself, you should probably, you would probably end up just killing the one person who could take that all away from you. Just saying. He ends up, you know, being sold as a slave on a spice transport, and he's there for years. That's gotta be miserable. He eventually does, you know, get out and find Tor Vizsla and murk his ass. And with that, the rest of the Death Watch just kind of scattered everywhere, and, you know, he kind of solved that problem for everybody. That's why they called him Jango Fett, problem solver. Not really.
Lame.
Shut up. I know everybody knows that. It was supposed to be a joke.
Supposed to be.
You know, I'm gonna have to rethink this whole co-host thing.
Think away.
Because you're kind of mean. Even still, Jango pulled away from his role and his people and chose a solitary life of being a bounty hunter. And he was happy that way for a time until, you know, Count Dooku, Darth Tyrannus, and Sifo Dyas approach him, and they're like, hey man, we're building this army, this clone army. We think it's what's best for, you know, everyone, for safety. We'll give you back the power when everything is safe. Look, anytime someone says, hey, give me control and power over everything, and I'll just hold on to it until it's safe. And as soon as it's safe, as soon as all of this danger is past, I'll give it right back. Anytime anyone tells you that, they're full of shit. They're full of shit, okay? Just little information. So they ask him to contribute his DNA to this great cause, and he agrees in exchange for him to have his own son because he didn't have children. And that's where we meet up with him in episode 2, Attack of the Clones. He's living his life on Kamino with the Kaminoans, I think it is. I can never say it right. And when Kenobi followed Jango to Geonosis and discovered the connection to Darth Tyrannus, a battle broke out where Jango is then beheaded by Jedi Master Mace Windu. And if you have watched the movies and you remember correctly, it was done right in front of Boba. Now, at this point, the story kind of changes depending on Legends and Canon. Canon is that from that point on, Boba vowed to kill Mace Windu. He blamed him for his father's death, which, I mean, he did behead him. He did chop off his head and kill his father. But according to Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, he was obsessed with vengeance. He wanted to really get back at Mace Windu. He wanted to cut his head off too. In Legends, however, he almost kind of understood that's the way. Live by the sword, die by the sword, sort of thing. After the battle, Boba fled on his father's ship, Slave One, and spent years with a team of bounty hunters, which we see in Clone Wars and Rebels. And he spends this time with them with the plan of getting to exact his revenge. That was his main priority, exacting revenge and honoring his father's name by killing his murderer, bringing him to justice. After failed attempts and betrayals by team members, Boba is captured and sent to Coruscant to be imprisoned. Even though he sees that the destruction he caused was wrong and apologizes for that, you know, amidst his quest for vengeance, he basically tells Mace Windu to go himself. After leaving prison in Coruscant, he forms the Bounty Hunters Syndicate. So he forms his own gang. Everyone needs to belong. Everyone needs to feel like they belong. He names it Krait's Claw. And if you are familiar with Star Wars at all, you know he's talking about a krayt dragon. Those things are badass. He, of course, chooses Tatooine as his base of operations because why not? It's kind of out there, and it's a haven for worst scum and villainy in the galaxy. In the ensuing years, through his work through his Crate's claw and all his bounty hunting and mercenary work, he becomes known as the deadliest bounty hunter in all of the galaxy. Like, he did very well for himself. And he was very young, too. He was very young. I think he was like 18, 19 years old, maybe a little younger. It's so hard. So there are timelines, just like we have 33 AD and 33 BC to measure time in our history. Star Wars has before the Battle of Yavin, which is A New Hope. That's the first movie. That's 0 BBY. And then you have ABY, after the Battle of Yavin. So all of this is taking place BBY. For example, to give you an idea of the timeline, Boba was born in 32 BBY, so 32 years before the Battle of Yavin, with the designation A0050. And according to the legends, he meets a woman in 15 BBY, so 15 years before A New Hope. He meets a Kafar bounty hunter woman by the name of Sintas Vel, and she was a total badass in her own right also. The following year, in 15 BBY, they are married and have a child, Aelin Vel. Young Boba decides this is the life for him. He's happy. He's got this beautiful, badass wife. He's got this beautiful daughter. It's time to maybe settle down. Let's settle down. That sounds good. Okay. So he settles down with Sintas and Aelin on Concord Dawn, his father's homeworld. And he actually takes the job or role of his biological grandfather, his grandfather, as the journeyman protector of this area. Well, one day while he was away, his supervising officer, his commanding officer, shows up at his house and rapes his wife, rapes Sintas. Well, of course, Boba finds out about it, and though she begged him not to because she knew what would happen, he goes and kills that supervising officer, like, brutally. He gets exiled for this. He's like, murder's bad. You can't do that. Even though it was for vengeance, you have to leave. Forcing him to abandon his wife and child. He didn't want to, but they made him. The only way that, his family was going to be not messed with is if he left. He goes back to being the greatest bounty hunter. Now, after being on Tatooine for years and doing jobs here and there for Jabba, and after Jabba hires Greedo to bring in Han Solo, and Greedo fails horribly, who shot first? I'll leave that to you to decide. So after Greedo fails horribly, Jabba's like, you know what? I should have hired Boba Fett in the first place. Yeah, I should have. So as I said, Jabba does then hire Boba. And that's when we really get to spend some quality time with our main man in the films, that is. With the help of Lando Calrissian and Darth Vader, he tries to redeem himself later, but can we really get over Lando just totally betraying his BFF like that? Like, Cloud City, Schmoud City. It was dick move. I feel like giving him a heads up or something. He does make good on his commission with Jabba the Hutt, and he freezes Han Solo in carbonite and delivers him to the fat man himself on Tatooine. As short-lived as this was, because we all know Miss Leia went and got her man back. I mean, they get captured in the process, but then thanks to R2-D2 and some pretty smart planning by Mr. Luke Skywalker, Leia kills Jabba. Luke frees Han, who's still kind of blind from the carbonite sickness. But then, and this just kills me. This really, and I know it bothered people for a long time. But if Boba Fett is supposed to be the greatest and deadliest bounty hunter in all of the galaxy, how are you going to kill him on accident like that? Like, he dies by Han Solo accidentally whipping around, whacking him in the jetpack, and his Wilhelm scream and all goes flying into the Sarlacc pit. Really? Really? Now you can say all you want that, well, George Lucas didn't realize how popular this character was gonna be. Sure, but just from a storytelling standpoint, if you're gonna say that this is the greatest, deadliest bounty hunter in all the galaxy, then logically speaking, that wouldn't have taken him out. So that took place in 4 ABY, so 4 years after the Battle of Yavin. But we don't hear from Boba again until 9 ABY on what appears to be one of the greatest television shows of all time, The Mandalorian. Love that show. Season 2 of The Mandalorian, the tragedy episode. Phenomenal. When Tamar Morrison, which, thank you for casting Tamar Morrison. If he's supposed to be a clone of Jango, he should basically be Jango, so good for you. That Tamar Morrison whack that stormtrooper with the gaffy stick, and then the camera pans up and we see him standing there in the Boba Fett armor. I get so excited every time I see it. I've seen it like 6 times, and I still get all excited like I'm in the movie theater and I'm seeing that one specific scene in Spider-Man No Way Home. So that's when we pick up with Boba Fett after he's thrown in that Sarlacc pit, and we realize, and in Legends, they say that, you know, he survived. I'm really excited for the Book of Boba Fett because they're going to explain it. They have to explain it to me. Now, my theory is that it was the Crate Dragon, because the Crate Dragon spits acid. So I have a feeling that the Crate Dragon maybe spat some acid at the Sarlacc, and that's how he got out, because he's covered in these burn scars, and that just makes too much sense to pass up. I have some other theories, some specs, some speculation I'd like to throw out there about what they may possibly do with the Book of Boba Fett series, if you'll allow it. Shut up. Because of Filoni's history, if you will, with bringing in Star Wars Legends into the fold, making them canon, it is my belief that they're going to make his wife and daughter canon. Boom. Now, according to the stories, his wife Sintas did divorce him after he left Concord Dawn, after he was exiled because there was just craziness. So she divorced him. Sintas had gone back to bounty hunting because girl's got to make a living. She's got a baby to raise. Don't judge. And around Aylin's 16th birthday, Sintas took a job to be able to afford to buy her apparently a super amazing birthday present. But this job ends up getting her frozen in carbonite for 40 years. Thanks, Mom, but I think I would have rather had you here. And Aylin is left on her own at the ripe old age of 16. She blamed her father for all of it, and herself became a bounty hunter and set out to kill her father. She wanted revenge. She even kills a Jango Fett clone by accident. She thought it was her dad, and so she killed him. Well, she gets hired by Han Solo's cousin to kill Han Solo. I mean, this guy is not making any friends. He should have been so grateful for Leia. I mean, really, because everyone else wants him dead. He's just apparently screwed everyone over. She takes this job, but gets arrested by Jason Solo, Han Solo and Leia's son. Yeah, in Legends, his name was not Ben or Kylo Winebag. It was Jason. And while he's interrogating her, he accidentally kills her. Like, whoopsie. Boy, that family. That family. And that was 40 ABY. It bears mentioning that for a time while she was trying to find and kill her father, she dresses in that armor and calls herself Boba Fett without revealing her identity, hoping it'll fish him out, and even tries using her daughter Murta Gav to capture and kill him. And it's while she's out hunting Han Solo that she realizes her Faja, her dad, is still alive. And I've done the math. It is possible for her to be in the Book of Boba Fett series because it takes place in 9 BBY when Aelin would be about 24, 25 years old. So it would be very possible and easy to insert her into canon by way of the Book of Boba Fett. And dude, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It'd be a great plot to the series. It could be a great plot to another season. I'm just saying. Just saying. There are a few schools of thought. Some just really feel like, no, Jango and Boba aren't Mandalorians. They said so. They said so in Clone Wars. That guy said so. Fuck that guy. Ever heard of sour grapes? Just saying. I trust and believe. I believe that Jango and Boba are both Mandalorians. And it makes me really, really happy whenever he pulls up his chain code and he shows him. Now, he hasn't taken the oath. And like he said, he follows no one. He's his own thing. Cool. But I really want Boba Fett to be the Mandalore. I really do. I think that would be awesome. I really, really think he should help Bo-Katan Kreese. Let me tell you something about dream casting. Okay? Katie Sackhoff, the woman who originally voiced Bo-Katan on the series Clone Wars. They bring her into Mandalorian season 2, and man, they even got her bracket brows. It's perfect. She makes me so happy. I love you, Katie Sackhoff. Thank you. But I think it would be really cool to have Boba actually come in and help her with that. And we could learn, we could have more Mandalorian culture. We could learn more about the Mandalorian culture in live action. Like, that would be incredible. You could do a whole series on the history of the Mandalorians. An entire show of just Boba Fett's, like all Boba Fett's everywhere. That would be so cool. I really love Ming-Na Wen also. I love her. And to have her as Fennec Shand on this show. She was on Bad Batch too, helping technically Boba's sister, Omega. I can't do a Kiwi accent, but can I just say, New Zealand, you have the best accent in the entire world. No one says dickhead quite like you. No one. Anytime I'm driving down the highway and someone cuts me off, I think dickhead in my head in a Kiwi accent. Thank you for that. You're a global treasure, New Zealand. Thank you for Flight of the Conchords. Thank you for What We Do in the Shadows. Thank you for Taika Waititi. Thank you. Thank you, New Zealand. Thank you. But the fact that they had her character on Bad Batch, I'm really, really hoping that we're going to get some more of the clones. We're going to get like Rex and all of them. And Omega, what would a girl Tamar Morrison look like? Someone get the Snapchat filter and test it out and show me. But if we could include that, and I'm wondering if the fact that, you know, Fennec Shand is on both of those shows, I'm hoping that means we get some more, you know, 99 action. I really feel like we have a lot to look forward to with the Book of Boba Fett series. There's so much to explore since the character has not been fleshed out in live action. We don't have a whole lot of him on screen. There's so much potential for this series, and I'm so excited. I've actually considered doing an entire show just breaking down the episodes and looking for Easter eggs. And can you really have enough Boba Fett? You really have enough Tamora Morrison? The answer you're looking for is no. It really opens the door for more series of this nature, like a Bo-Katan series, Mandalorian Civil War series, Mandalorian History series. The possibilities are endless. They've created such an engrossing and giant world just with this one culture. You could do so much, and it would be great. Even people who didn't know much about Star Wars to begin with would love this show. I have so many hopes and dreams for the Boba Fett series. So many. Are we going to get a Harrison Ford de-aged cameo like we did with Luke and Mandalorian? Can one hope so much? Honestly, I don't think the show is going to need to be carried like that. I don't think we need pop-ins from the Solo or Skywalker fam. I mean, it'd be a nice little treat on top of our little Boba Fett cake. But it's such an engrossing story, and there's so much to work with that it's not really necessary. Like the throngs of Star Wars fans out there, I gotta give it up for my man Dave Filoni. I do believe he was put on this earth to save Star Wars from Kathleen Kennedy and J.J. Abrams' hands.
But what about...
And there you have it, nerdlings. That's everything I know about the greatest, most deadliest bounty hunter in all the galaxy, Boba Fett. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Appreciate you. Thanks for being patient while I work on my Boba Fett look. Could double as a Christmas look. It could. Red and green. It's got a nice little Christmas vibe. So there you go. Again, if you like what you saw today at all, feel free to hit like and subscribe. Don't forget to ring that bell so you get notifications when I pop on here. I'm going to start expanding. We're going to have a bi-weekly show where we look into what Marvel and DC are releasing on TV and the movies. That sounds fun. I get to speculate a little, which is my favorite thing to do. Also got a little show where we show you our reactions. We got one up already of my son and I reacting to Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh my God. I'm going to do the best I can to post a breakdown of that. Hopefully soon. I'm going to give you all a little bit of time to watch it for yourself, so I don't spoil anything for you, but I will warn you when there will be spoilers. Again, please hit like, please hit subscribe. I require validation to exist. We also have Instagram, so check that out too. Until then, guys, take care. Have an awesome nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.